Now, Brexit, Trump, even Gary Lineker. There are few things off limits for the left-leaning reporter Jonathan Pye, and some of his best-loved commentary has been about Boris Johnson and COVID lockdowns.
He trusted the great British public to do the right thing. This is the same great British public that voted. You know where I'm going with this, right? The same great British public that was hoodwinked into voting. Yeah, you're ahead of me. The same great British public that saw fit to vote Mrs. Brown's Boys, the greatest sitcom in UK TV history. The great British public. What a disgrace.
So the man behind Jonathan Pye is comedian actor Tom Walker. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
Great
Hello.
to see you. And that was a clip from one of your previous stage shows. You're about to take Jonathan Pye back on the road.
Indeed, with a new tour, Heroes and Villains, I've called it. You have to come up with a title before you start writing the show. But actually, as I'm writing the show, it's quite a pertinent title.
Well, yeah, because you're looking at people in our society who are good and bad.
Well, but also the more I write it, you realise that no one is. We're very one or the other, this society. You know, you're either good or you're bad, and actually no one, very few people are one or the other. We all have those sort of hypocrisies within us. But next year is going to be quite an exciting year politically. You've got a UK election, you've got a US election. Now, if, like me, you're not a fan of the present Tory government, you're going, well, we need a hero to save us from Rishi Sunak. Who's our hero? Well, we've got Keir Starmer. And then if you've got Trump, you think for many people, Trump is sort of the worst person in the world. Who's going to save us? Joe Biden. Really? These really are heroes, you know. But I think also within our, you know, it's the heroes inside us. But we all have our good and bad sides. No one's perfect. And I think it's Pye reflecting on his own hypocrisies.
So with Jonathan Pye, he's been around for 7 to 8 years, and I see a lot of your social media as Pye, so as a different person. Has he changed over the 7 or 8 years you've been doing him?
I think maybe he's. I think I'm a bit more mellow, so maybe he's a little bit more mellow.
Yeah.
But I think there is also that we've had this present government in one form or another for sort of 13 years. That there is a slight exhaustion to that, and I think he's a little bit exhausted. But I think
being
also,
angry, because he's on the left, so he's kind of angry about it.
He is a typical self-righteous, angry lefty, and that's why also as a satirical character, I can kind of ape the left as well, because he is very much that you know, Guardian reading, you know, self-righteous. He always.
Are you describing Gemma here? Is that what?
Tofu eating wokerati.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose, but also I do often have a go at the sort of the excesses of the kind of the wokerati.
Yeah. I don't think I am that thing. The first time I ever saw you doing your reporter thing, it was brilliant because I thought you were real.
I did too, for a long time.
Way, Rosie Holt does a character where she parodies a Conservative MP, and it's just so clever. It's brilliant.
I think that's I've had trouble over the years that still people think I am him.
Yes.
And I think, you know, the first time you watch it, you go, oh my God, did you see that news reporter loses rag? I did very well there. Loses rag. But but people still think that I am him. I mean, people call me Jonathan on the street, and you go, I get that. But they really do think that I am this angry.
That's good though. It must be working.
I guess
you're
so.
a trained actor, not a trained comedian. So this
Thank
has
you.
he's taken you into a different area, right? So
absolutely. I mean, from a performance point of view, particularly the live shows. I mean, I always viewed stand-up. I always loved stand-up comedy because I thought it's one of those art forms that I will never be able to perform, but now I do. But walking out on stage on your own to deliver what is essentially an hour and a half monologue, there's no one there to catch you.
No.
Right? It is terrifying. But I have to say, in the last few years, I've felt a lot more comfortable in my skin doing that. I think I had a bit of an imposter syndrome, I think, for a few years, because you've got a lot of comics who spend years doing the club circuit, and I kind of bypass that. I mean, I had 20 years of unemployment. That was my...
Well, comedy's the hardest thing. I mean, my brother's a comedian, so...
Of course.
I really admire people whose job is to make other people laugh, Storm, right? It's the best thing.
Well, we try and do it and often fail. So, yes, it's a very, very good skill.
But also,
we're still learning.
It's the only art form that it is perfectly acceptable for an audience member to go, get off!
Yeah,
it's
amazing.
It's terrifying. It is terrifying.
Yeah, my brother's worst heckle was when someone shouted, "Sit down, Blondie." And he didn't have any way of responding to it. So what I wonder, though, is whether we just don't have the political leaders to get angry about. You mentioned Starmer and Biden, and actually they don't have the sort of three-dimensional quality that they did 30 years ago, let's say.
Well, we recently had Boris and Truss. They were fairly easy to write for. Truss was.
That is true.
But if you look at say Trump, when Trump came along, it was a godsend for someone like me. I mean, Brexit, Trump, the worse the world got, the better my career did. It was sort of, But I found Trump quite quickly very difficult to write for because he did it all for you.
Yes, that's right.
All you had to do was read out one of his tweets, and it's all there for you. It was very difficult to kind of find an angle rather than just go, look what he said
Maybe
today.
the same with Boris Johnson, actually, in a way.
A little bit.
The actual person was the cartoon.
And anyone who is so adept and so quick to their first instinct is to just lie.
Yeah, well.
And you can be caught in that lie because you said something one day and you said something exactly the opposite again. You go, how can you satirise that?
He could be back. Could be back.
Boris.
What, Boris? Trump? Yeah.
I genuinely think he'll win.
Do you?
Yeah.
Because I just saw some polling in the battleground states that show him ahead of Biden, which is the only thing that really matters, is whether he is beating Biden in 5 or 6 states, and he is at the moment. And he's got a legal case going on in London, which is obviously an attempt to clear his name slightly from some of the allegations. So, that's, I guess, good for Jonathan Pye.
Yeah, but I would happily not have him back. I mean, it's...
Let's see. Yeah, what was the famous one, Storm? You came in and said, I just heard Trump saying...
you have to drink bleach to get rid of COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Could we inject disinfectant or hit the body with an enormous amount of light?
Yeah.
That was his a very powerful light. OK, Jonathan Pye, Heroes and Villains, goes on tour in January. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Tom, and stay with us. We'll look at some more stories in the papers.